Don't hit anything. My phone says it.
Oh dear. Welcome, guys. It is so great to have you here. I have got Simone and Paul with me today, and I feel so blessed because this beautiful couple are going to share with us their journey in their relationship. And I've got a few questions that I've sent through to you. But so welcome, Simone and Paul. It is so great to have you here.
Thank you very much for inviting us, Jackie.
Absolute pleasure. And you have a lot of courage because a lot of people don't want to speak openly about their relationship. So I've been quite reserved with the kind of questions that I'm asking today. And the conversation is really more about understanding your relationship. And it's really for the purposes of helping other people look at long-term relationships and go, it's not all perfect, is it? So how are you guys going at the moment?
We have our moments.
Go.
Yeah, it's like that, isn't it? You have your moments, and I know for myself in our relationship, my relationship with Craig, we can go from amazing in one moment to the next minute wanting to rip each other's heads off. So it's up and down, and I really do get that. And I think looking in at other people's relationships is just sometimes gives a bit of insight into what truly goes on, because I think that quite often people are not honest about where they're at in their relationship, and sometimes talking about it or hearing other people talk about it can be so helpful for people who are experiencing some tough times in their relationship.
Yes.
So I'll launch into the first question. So really, I want to start back at the beginning. How did you guys meet?
At school. We met at school.
We were both year 12. He's my toy boy. Paul was 15 and I was 16 when we met.
Very cute.
It's a long time ago now.
So you met at school. Have you always been together, or did you meet, have breakups and got back together? Give me the details.
No, we've always been together. There's been quite a few threats of leaving.
Yeah, Simone's been me for 30 years now.
Paul, what's that been like?
Yeah, Simone, so it's a bit of a roller coaster. Up and down.
Well, I know women, and it's a bit of a roller coaster with women, really.
Well, yeah, that's the case.
So you met when you were 15 and 16. Wow. Like, I guess in terms of just looking at back there, if you take yourself back to when you were 15 and 16, did you ever imagine that you would be together for this amount of time?
No, never. Well,
with my crystal.
We didn't think about it at the time, I guess.
I'll be honest. I think that once we made the decision to be together, then there wasn't any question about whether or not we were going to stay together until, of course, I cracked it and I'd packed my bags and threatened to leave. But as young people, when we were at school, I think that perhaps at that time we didn't have any other idea that we'd be with anybody else. I always thought that whilst I was with Paul, that Paul was the one. But it was just a case of we were young and we're letting to, I don't know, see where things led because we were so young. So we really grew up together.
Yeah. And are you married or are you married?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
How long have you been married for?
27 years. No, 23.
23 years, and together for how long?
30.
Together for 30 years. Okay, so tell me about the moment when you guys went, yep, this is probably a long-term relationship. We're hanging in for the long haul.
There's been a few, I guess along the way, there's been a few times when we've decided to commit.
Maybe when we first moved in together.
We didn't move in together till we were engaged. No, so the very first time together was when we were engaged. You went to Darwin for 3 months or something and worked with my brother.
That's right, yeah.
And on your return was when you asked for my hand in marriage.
Oh, wow, beautiful. And Paul, for you, when you asked Simone for her hand in marriage, did you did you talk to her family about it, or was it just straight out talking to, asking Simone to marry you?
I don't recall now.
Gracious heavens.
Well, it was a long time ago.
Oh no. Sorry. Paul and I had actually discussed it and decided that when he was away, if all was well and we still loved each other and had longing to be together whilst he was away, that that we would commit and actually do the traditional thing and go and speak to my parents about actually marrying me, and if they'd get if mum and dad would give us their blessing, which they did. And I think they've always accepted Paul as part of the family. So ever since we were young, Paul's been having family dinners, family Christmases, and been a part of our family the entire journey.
Beautiful. And so do you remember, like, when you think back to those younger years, what were the things, Paul, I'll ask you this first. What was the thing that attracted you to Simone?
I guess she was very vivacious, very alive, very always, I don't know, happy is not the right word, but well, always sparkly, always exciting, always excited.
Yeah.
I remember, really.
Not much has really changed, has it? She's still very excitable, very sparkly, and you light up a room when you walk into it, Simone.
Thank you.
And I still say that when she walks in the room, my heart still jumps. It does. But,
wow. Paul, because that heart jumping, for many people, that have been together for 30 plus years, that part of the relationship for a lot of people dies down in the first 18 months to 24 months. What is it that really keeps that spark alive for you?
Just that I know who she is and who she is to me, I guess, and it still is exciting to see her. I'd like say she'll come and visit me at work, and even if I know she's coming, there still is that. Oh, hi, how you going? Great to see you.
Yeah, and do you find, Paul, that you have to work on making that, like keep reminding yourself that, or it just happens quite naturally for you?
I think it happens naturally.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Of course, there are moments.
Yeah. And Simone, what about you? What was it that attracted you to Paul?
I guess we were actually on school camp and we were dancing, and Paul had a dance partner at the time that within PE, like within sports, she was always Paul's dance partner. And all I can remember really is our eyes meeting across the dance floor and Paul actually asking me to dance, and gorgeous Kelly Hathley having her nose out of joint because we ended up spending that night dancing together as partners, so that's my memory of our first meeting or coming together with an attraction more so than just a friendship, there being something else there, because we'd always known each other at school, obviously, and had mixed in the same circles, but there'd never really been any social interaction just with the two of us, or we didn't really know each other at the time. So that school camp really for me was the first time that I had discovered there might be more.
Oh wow, beautiful. And so that's, Simone, do you feel that when Paul's talking about how he feels when you walk into the room and he still has that because kind of his heart misses a beat. Do you feel that from Paul?
Yes, I do. Yeah, it's pretty special actually. And on the odd occasion when he actually says how much he loves me and how his heart skips a beat, he actually says that to me, and that it's incredibly special. I really do like hearing that. I mean, what woman wouldn't like to hear that?
Absolutely. And, you know, a lot of the work that I'm doing at the moment is helping men understand that that is what women want to hear from their partners. And I don't know, Paul, I'd love your feedback on this. I mean, how hard is it for you to say that to Simone?
Oh, it's easy.
It's easy. Great.
I mean, I think with the questions that you're asking are all wonderful and really quite positive, and I honestly know that Paul's responses are true and from his heart, and that perhaps it may seem a little bit unreal, especially with the down times that we have, you know, because when things are good, they're really, really good, right? But there's still been many moments, especially with my health and well-being, when it's been incredibly challenging. And I suppose having the connection that we do have and the fact that we grew up together, it's allowed us, I don't know, given us the strength to keep going, perhaps.
Mm. Well, you've got a solid foundation, and so when all the other challenges do come up, like the health challenges or, you know, just general relationship stuff, you have a good foundation to work with. So just talking a little bit about, you know, some of the challenging times that you have had, Paul, I'd love to hear from you. What have been some of the major hurdles that you've had to overcome in your relationship to get you to where you are now?
Well, apart from, well, my work has I work shift work, I guess. So it's not the normal 9 to 5 job, and Simone's always adapted to that, in that she's taken on a job where she can have the same days off, or she's worked another job to work similar shifts or similar hours to me, so we could spend more time together. My weekend has always been Wednesday and Thursday, my entire working career pretty much. And Simone, most of the time, has been lucky enough to be able to have a job where that slots in together. On the other hand, I think a lot of our longevity is to do with perhaps that we aren't in each other's pockets all the time, in that I am at work when Simone might be out with friends, which is a double-edged sword, in that I'm always in trouble for being at work when I should be out with Simone and her friends at birthdays or just dinners out. You know, that's become a real problem.
Yeah.
Simone, it's something I'm just used to. It's just what I do. But the fact
And Simone, sorry, Paul, I interrupted you. Please keep going.
The fact that, yeah, it still continues after all this time, that I am working on a Friday or Saturday night, has become a bit of an issue.
Okay, Simone, how do you find that impacts the relationship for you?
Well, Paul's right in saying that it did become an issue. Most definitely, there came a time when, like, he's not at Christmas. He always shows up late at Christmas time, and so as much as he's welcome and a part of our family celebrations, by the time he'd arrive, everyone's already full of Christmas cheer, and he's absolutely exhausted and really just wants to have a couple of beers and go to bed, because he's, you know, under the pump. And he works so hard when he's at work. So not being a part of all of that life was, I guess, the norm for such a long time. But then over the recent years has become more challenging for me. And I guess the family, because everyone always tries to adapt so that we can all be together. And things, you know, life gets in the way. Especially when you work in hospitality, service industry, and that's your busy time. That said, only last year I did have a bit of an aha moment, and I realised that it's, although Paul's always at work, his choice anyway as an introvert and as his personality and who he is would mean that even if he was home, he'd prefer to stay at home anyway and not be coming out. So if given the choice, generally speaking, Paul would rather not come along. So perhaps working away was always an excuse.
That's true to a degree, but yeah, work has become an excuse. But I'd like to be able to, family functions aren't always the best. I mean, Simone doesn't like them herself, so.
I can relate.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So what you're saying is that even although, because sometimes it's not just about the bigger family, it's the time that you guys get to spend together as well, and making sure that you really maximize the time that you do have. So Simone, would you classify yourself as an extrovert?
Well, I always had believed that I was an extrovert, but now I've come to understand that I'm incredibly social and I do thrive and am energized by interacting with people without a doubt. But at the same time, I need to re-energize and base. And because I suffer with depression, when I would be on my own and in my own space, it was a really dark time and it wasn't a happy place. So for me to be interacting socially and being on, was always, it was perhaps without knowing, without it being an intention, I suppose, at the time, was my way of I'd be on and out because that was where it felt good in a sense. Because when I came home on my own, I didn't want to be on my own. That was a scary place to be. And now more recently that over the past few years, I suppose I'm in a much better place. I have a much better understanding of what I need and how to nurture myself and how to fill my cup. And I actually love my own company. And I am now choosing who I spend my time with and what I do socially. Whereas always, yes, even if I didn't wish to go out, I'd always say yes. I had that need to just be out, and now I actually don't have any problem with saying no.
Perhaps that's what I've done all along, chosen to who I want to spend time with.
Yes, and I agree with that, most definitely. Absolutely. So Paul, without a doubt, would spend time, with, there's a very select few group of people that Paul socialises with, plays golf with, is happy to go away for weekends and that sort of thing, boys' weekends. And those all have been the same guy forever. Whereas for myself, I mix in all different circles. I have a very wide network of friends that I have all different sorts of social occasions with.
Yeah. Simone, are you comfortable talking about your depression and how that's impacted your relationship?
I am now, yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Well, for a lot of people, that is one of the major areas that does impact on their relationship, is change in their moods, how they're feeling about themselves, how they feel about their relationship. So I guess, Paul, if I can ask you, how have you found that has impacted your relationship?
Oh, it's been huge in that there's been some very specific moments throughout our relationship and when I say moments, I guess spaces in time, they're not brief. And when they are here, they're pretty full on. It's just something, I guess, that we wouldn't say that we deal with together necessarily. It's hard to explain. Simone deals with it in her way, and I guess I deal with it in my way, but I've always just sort of gone along with the ride.
Yeah. And so Simone, you've said, you now know how to better nurture yourself and look after yourself. Have you found that that's had a profound difference on, you know, how long you stay in those states of depression or how often you go there?
Absolutely. And well, for many years, I didn't even know that I was depressed. I just thought everyone felt the same way. So even when Paul and I met, like the whole time that we were at school, I was having these feelings and these thoughts and these, you know, mood swings. But I guess over my life, they increased and the episodes became greater and more impactful on our life. And until eventually I did go to the doctor and realise that I had it, that, you know, there were labels for what I was feeling, and not everybody always felt like this. So I think that we grew with the illness, so to speak, not even knowing that I was unwell. It was just me being moody or whatever that then started turning into particularly dark times. Is that right?
Yeah.
And then when things, you know, push came to shove, and really only over the last few years, you know, I started medication, and then after medication, go off the medication, then there'd be, you know, but nothing seemed to manage it, like not the pills, not the anything. And I guess I always kept it under the rug. Never ever, I don't know if you spoke about it with your friends or shared with family what was happening at home.
No, probably only recently, in that there has been some pretty severe moments, and it's hard not to, not to share it, but how not to, if people ask what's going on. I guess I now have some close friends that I would just say, hey, this is what's happening.
And I think all of that, all of this, like our whole life together and this coping that we had, it was probably only 3 or so years ago, would you say? That it all came to a huge head, and that maybe you've started, because my family didn't even know. You know, it was something that really wasn't talked about, and even though I may have had medication, it was still something that
always something that we dealt with ourselves.
Yeah, it was our thing. It was behind closed doors. It was a bit like talking about sex. You know, it was one of those things that we talked about, or we shared, but we didn't share with anybody else.
Not that we tried to keep something that I guess it was personal, it was very personal.
Yeah. And in those, you know, when you've got something that you share that is so personal that the rest of the world doesn't really know about, that has, you know, it can be a double-edged sword. It has the ability to really pull you closer together, but at the same time, you're both stuck with the same problem and not really having that kind of outside view of people being able to help and support you as well.
Yeah. Because, I mean, I needed to admit that I needed help in the first place and that there was a problem. So it all started with acknowledging. And Paul, God love him, would be encouraging me to get help or suggesting, but there was really nothing he could do until I made the decision myself. So it's been a process, you know, it's been a long process. Now that I guess I do talk about it, and I talk about it like this openly, and I never have previously, we've got more, I guess there's been a lot of time with that as well, because with the personal development and the awareness around that meant communication changed as well within our relationships. So our dialogue would change, or my version of, well, now that this is what's going on, let's do this, or let's do that. And Paul would be like, yeah, confused, have that face.
Yeah. So in terms of just talking about your relationship, obviously you've had some major hurdles that you've been able to overcome. And through that, it would have strengthened your relationship, even although at the time it might have felt like it was, you know, it was really hard for both of you. How has all of this impacted on the level of intimacy that you have in your relationship?
Your turn.
it's hard in that I'm just wondering how to put it into words, but I guess we still have. I think of the last couple of years, it's been like Simone's still trying to find her feet with this thing, I think, and I know it's something that we work on. I guess we have to work on. I don't know. I'm not sure what the answer is to that.
Yeah.
How's it affected our intimacy? Well, I would say that when I'm in a really good space, everything's great. But when I'm not happy with myself, then, you know, how could anyone else want me? How could anyone else want to be around me? So there's a lot of me pushing away, and I can feel that happening. And something that I know I need to work on is actually allowing Paul into my space, even when I am not loving myself. And I can see and feel that he really wants to help and give me his love and show me his love, but I'm not in a space where I can accept it. And so in my head space, it's just really confused, and it does impact, I would say, negatively on our intimacy, you know, without a doubt. But yeah, so it's just managing being in a good space and being able to make the most, to being able to communicate with, yeah. What do you think?
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Oh, it's hard, Jackie. Yeah.
Yeah. Paul, I can hear it's hard, and I hear what you're saying in terms of knowing that, Simone, you're allowing somebody else to love you to the level that Paul is able to, when what he said to start off with was that, you know, his heart skips a beat when he sees you. But I understand what you're saying. It's really hard to see that, to think that somebody could love you to that level when you don't feel it about yourself.
Yeah. And that is where I think perhaps Paul has his coping mechanisms, and he knows just through being in the energy and having grown up with all of this, he's got his own dealing with it and knows to stand back and just when to let things ride. And yeah, now that it's something that we actually talk about and acknowledge more, it's it's ongoing, you know, like that it's something that you work at. It's like anything. It doesn't matter how much you love it, like you're living into your passion and doing whatever it is that, you know, floats your boat every day in work or your hobbies and all these other things. And you need to work and practice and practice and practice. And it changes what you need to practice at as well. So as your skill levels, as your communication, as your intimacy, as all these things change, you need to be able to adapt with that. And so it's not the same. It's always changing.
It does. And obviously, we have been together a long time, and I feel I know Simone inside out. I guess, like Simone says, I can just know when to hang back, and I guess the important thing is that I'm always here for her, even when she hates me and wants to leave me and out, or she wants to run away. And I guess what gets us through as a couple is, I guess, that I know who she is, and what she's doing is not necessarily who she is. So I can be here when she comes out of it, if that makes sense.
And on that note, I mean, congratulations to Paul. I mean, he's a keeper, man. He has stood by me, and he's had to work hard. Like, he's put up with a lot, and there's not a lot of people that would be prepared to have the strength and this around and cope with and be able to deal with what Paul has had to deal with over the years. And I think, you know, like, seriously, special man. And
but of course I wouldn't do it if I didn't think she was worth it. I mean, you know Simone, and you know who she is. And of course she's worth it. So I'm not going to throw that away just because she's not well with something at some point in her life.
And it's so beautiful to hear you say that, Paul, because where we do kind of throw things away when we feel like something's broken, it's so much easier to sometimes walk away than it is to stay. And it takes a lot of courage to stay, even in the face of when you're being told that, you know, I don't love you, I want to separate, and all of that. You've stuck it out, and I think that's such a beautiful, beautiful thing. And you're right, yes, she is worth it, and so are you, Paul.
He's definitely worth it, and it's hard to believe that there are times when I literally have said that he's not, because obviously my lack of self-worth and my self-hatred at the time, I then throw back at him, and there's all this blame and you know, that it's not my fault, it's your fault, because, you know. And I think that a lot of the time you're talking about this, I guess, disposable society that we live in, and how easy it is to throw things away. And people come into relationships now in a different space altogether. Like, we literally grew up together. Like, so many firsts we had together. Like, we graduated school together, we went to the formal together, we had our first holiday together. Like, we've shared so many life firsts that a lot of people in this day and age have already experienced all of that on their own with other friends, and have a whole life that they have behind them, whereas we've created our life together the entire journey. And there's something to be said for that, without a doubt. And I think that what people don't realise is now, if they're getting into relationships as when they're older, and not even, you know, old, but even in their 30s or something, if they're finding their first real love, someone that they want to marry, and they've done all of these things, then your tolerance level is different, because you're so much more independent. Whereas we depended on each other and have relied on growing together the whole way, which for me, I think, is what has helped to keep us together. Because if someone came in and saw me in my bad state, you know, when I really wasn't in a good space, they're not likely to hang around. I wouldn't hang around. I've tried to leave, trust me.
It is challenging for people who are who've been in relationships where they have had that growth together, and then find themselves in a brand new relationship and kind of starting over. And you're right, Simone, it can be very hard to put up with those nuances from people who we don't have that relationship with, that we don't have that depth of understanding of. It can be really challenging. And I see this a lot in couples who, as you say, you know, in their late 20s to 30s, who are separating from their first partners and moving into new relationships. It's a huge challenge for people.
Yeah.
Mm.
And
sorry, you go.
That's fine. I can talk forever.
You spoke before, Simone, you mentioned that, Paul, you have a couple of coping mechanisms that you use in your relationship to help you get through those tough times. Can you think of any specific coping mechanisms that you use and how they've helped you?
A question for me or Simone?
Yeah, for you, Paul.
I guess, well, I guess I can just not shut down, but just step back and not engage, and not be reactive. I think has been a big one. To know when not to. Like, often there's an argument to be had most of the time, you know, but most of the time it's not worth it, or it's not important enough to argue about. And it's easy just to step back and go, sure, okay, or end the discussion. End the discussion. I think that's a big one. Just not continue something that's just going to go around and around and around and end up in a worse place than it began.
Paul, that's a coping mechanism for you. Simone, how do you respond to Paul when he does that?
In actual fact, it's works both ways. It works well for me as well, because it allows me, basically Paul steps away, he steps back and gives me space. So I can smash a few things, I can swear, I can have my moment, I can work through it. And because I've got the space to do that, and I'm not actually attacking him, I'm just through the process, my own process, to get it out of my system and move on. And then, yeah, magically we come together again, and it's all good. And so, so Paul's coping mechanism of giving me space and stepping back works for me, and that without a doubt.
Beer helps a lot too.
Oh, stop.
We all have our vices, Paul.
Well, we've been for almost 2 months. And look, we're still together.
Wow. Is that by choice? Have you decided you're taking a break from alcohol?
Yeah. I think it's a
Both
sign
of you.
That's what I'm scared of. It is a sign of age.
By July.
Well, congratulations.
We just decided we're much better us when we're not drinking. Yeah.
Wow, guys, that is absolutely huge. And what a commitment to your relationship as well, because that's a massive step.
Yeah.
And it works.
Mm.
So have you found that not having alcohol, Simone, this is more directed at you, right? So I stopped drinking alcohol about 3 years ago, and I used to have my best sex when I was drunk. And I don't know about you. Have you found that there's been any changes in your intimacy because you're not drinking?
Well, I'm awake more. So
Lucky you, Paul.
yeah, it'd be like, wake up. Wake up. Before it was snoring. But now, mate, actually, yeah, the opposite. I think it's good because I'm more alert and we have the energy now, and yeah, so it's definitely different. Better not drinking.
Fantastic. And do you find as well that your body's a lot more receptive when you're not drinking alcohol?
Yeah, well, it's a different kind of sex, right? Like there's the fun, wild party sex, you've had a few drinks and who knows, anything goes. And then there's the, which is it's a very different level that you're at. Absolutely.
Yeah. One of the things that I didn't love about not drinking was that Craig and I hardly ever have makeup sex anymore because there's nothing we fight about. We used to fight when we were drinking. So yeah, I miss makeup sex.
Look like.
Yeah. Look, seriously, living with someone like me, honey, the arguments never go away. There's always room for makeup sex in this house.
I'm good to hear. Oh, wow. So, yeah, I guess for people who are out there watching this and are going through a really tough time at the moment, Paul, I'll start with you, who are going through a tough time in their relationship, what are some things that you could suggest for them?
Well, if they're going through a tough time, and obviously it depends on what level of intimacy or at what stage of relationship they're at. But all I can say, if you do love that person and you believe in that person, then a way to get through that point in time. And if you trust your relationship, there will be better times after that period.
Beautiful. Thank you. Simone, what about for you? What advice have you got for anybody out there that's struggling at the moment?
Well, I think that if anything, it's a relationship that is in fact of love and friendship. And I think that the key is really friendship first, and having that, creating the time and the space to actually have another, reignite the passion, reignite the friendship, start the communication and the conversations happening again. Because so something that Paul and I have actually been doing now for quite a while is, because of the way Paul works and the hours that he works, and because I tend to go away quite a bit, and then Paul has got his golf and his mates time and his gym and all of that sort of thing, we've decided to down phones and technology and have date days and Lovers Day. And Lovers Day is really where I think when we started having our Lovers Days and actually just reconnecting and going out for lunch, or I know, going for a drive, just creating different experiences, maybe spending the morning down on the beach and going for a walk and having a coffee or things like that, and actually having dates again. And that for me is really something that has worked, and I think it's worked really well for both of us. And I'd be suggesting that if you're having incredibly tough times or things, a rocky patch with your partner,
Simone, have we still got you?
then to and start making this dying, darling.
You're still on, Simone. We've still got you on broadcast. Your camera's off.
Hey, I'm just going to have to plug into power.
Sure.
Hang on. Sorry. Actually, I don't know how to do that. Oh, I know.
Just plug into that.
Oh.
So you were talking about having lovers' time, and this is something that you spoke to me about a couple of months ago, Simone, and I'd actually forgotten that you'd said it, which is that you and Paul take time out technology-free to really just reconnect with one another at a very deep level.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's really quite easy to get lost in everyday activities. Like when you're working, you want your downtime, but you've got your household duties and, you know, just life gets in the way. And so being able to create a space in your week to be able to literally be together and not have to send off an email or, you know, pick up the phone or do anything like that. There's no other distractions, and just being together has really helped me.
Just making the time. Life gets in the way.
Yeah, it absolutely does. It does.
Or younger, but for whatever reason now life just seems to get in the way. There's always something that has to be done, and it's nice to just to drop everything and just spend some time for us.
Yeah.
Without bothered by anybody else, or if we choose to be with somebody else, then that's fine, but it's nice just making time for us and just forgetting about all of the crap that goes on.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, Paul and Simone, it's been just such an incredible pleasure and an honor to have you here. I celebrate your relationship because what you've got is so beautiful and so special, and it's so great to hear how fondly you speak about each other, but also knowing that, you know, there are tough times, but you have the courage to stick by the commitments that you made to each other, and it's beautiful.
Thanks, Jackie.
Thank you so much for giving us the time. I really appreciate it.
It's been my absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Cheers.